Chris, Liege Games weekly crowdfunding roundup, and if I'm feeling like it, do some campaign updates. I usually save that for tomorrow's video, but we'll see how spicy I'm feeling today. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for clicking in the first place. Trying to give you as much information as you can about every game that is new launched this week on any crowdfunding website that's out there, so you can make the best decisions for what's right for you, as well as just so you can know about stuff that you might otherwise not know about in the first place. Should you back it or not? That being said, let's do this. Now we're going to start with Dead Reckoning here. This is the new Saga expansion, Letters of Marque, from AEG. Over $300,000. Say what you will, compared to all the other big box deluxification games that have gone out in the last month or so. But the interesting standpoint that I'm going to point out here, that I sort of mentioned a couple weeks ago on a different video, I'm going to make sure you can see this here so that it's not being blocked by my head. At the top, right above me, Pledge Manager Access. Guaranteed Pledge Manager Access is $5. Now, the other thing, and the real reason I'm pointing this out at the beginning of the video here, folks, is it says right here at the bottom, so I don't highlight it, but it is non-refundable. You know, like those $1 pledges, like you could sort of refund if you wanted to? You know, this $5, if you decide not to upgrade, you're not even gonna get a chance to get it refunded. You're just paying them $5. And I'm wondering how many of the 700 people that are doing that right now actually read that fine print and saw that it's non-refundable, if they're gonna keep it. This isn't just, you know, I'm gonna maybe upgrade it. This is, well, you better upgrade it because otherwise you're just gonna be out $5. And again, like with the other campaigns, $1 is $1, but how many of these $5 campaigns are you willing to do and not get refunded on over time? Because that's the scary trend. Now, that being set aside here, the real reason we're talking about this is it's, you know, AEG's latest flagships, so to speak, in that sense, where they're adding basically a third Saga expansion, which is somewhat of a campaign expansion, somewhat of just elements you can add in. It's got two modular sort of different things contained within this actual expansion, and they're just giving more. And the question just with a game like this is, when you're already talking over a $200 price point to get in, essentially, because this is what you're talking about right here, right? The other previous campaign, including this one, is going to cost you more than $200 to get it all. And when we're talking about this as a whole, really the question is, are you willing to spend probably $300, including shipping, to get all this stuff? What's new? Like I said, new stuff, new resources, new rival empires that you're going to go up against, and there's everything that you need from all the usual suspects, right? So take that for what you will. Do you need more of this? Have you played the base game enough? Have you gone through the other Saga expansions? You know, is this a game that is going to actually get significant amount of playtime? Because you're talking a 3-hour game that's going to cost you, you know, $1 to $2 to even $300 to get at this point, depending on how you feel about that. And unfortunately, this seems to be the new trend. Although, again, like I said, the fact that you can get the base game and the expansion, you can get all the stuff separately. I mean, these are expensive expansions, folks. So here's the interesting aspect of things. The new expansion alone right here is $59. The base game is $79. And that's a really, really expensive expansion compared to the price of the base game. And you're looking at about $50 per expansion after that as well, if you're going for the all-in here. So that's not an inexpensive side of things, right? And there's plenty of video down here from all the usual suspects that you can see. You know, they've sort of split it out, all the really big ones up top, and they've sort of gone through all the rest of the really big ones down here. And just, do you really need more of this? Are you going to get all these expansions played? Have you played this already to that extent? And I can't believe that the all-in is only going to be $22 of shipping. That's incredibly low nowadays with getting all of this stuff. I have to imagine it's going to be more like double that. So you're going to be talking close to $300 for the all-in. Do you need it? Do you need all this stuff? I'm getting off the trend of backing expansions nowadays, right? Because I'm hardly getting the base game played enough. And expansions with something like this is a lifestyle game that you're going to be playing 3 hours at a time. Can you play this enough 3 hours at a time to add these modular components, to add these campaign systems that are going to need to be played 5 times or 6 times, 3 hours each, whatever it may be? So take that for what you will. I don't think it's a bad game. It's definitely a game, though, like Return to Dark Tower, I'd be very happy to play if someone brought to game night, but I'm not sure I want to buy it or own it myself at this point either. So that's Dead Reckoning, Letters of Marque. Check it out if you're interested. Next up is Barbaric, which is already at $150,000 total. And I didn't know what to expect of this one because there wasn't a whole lot of conversation around it prior to the launch. I mean, I only saw it because of Facebook ads. This is a miniature-driven skirmish-esque game. You are this animal-based human. I'm forgetting the other term. I can't pronounce it correctly. And you're riding a little gear animal, essentially. And you put them both together on their character boards, and they give you this experience die and the health. And then they have a little bit of asymmetric abilities. But it's really sort of a move-attack style skirmish game. And I just can't tell, even when I look at the rulebook here, which is, a good 18, 20 pages total, how unique it is. Then they talk about the game cycle here, that we've got an event, then the day phase happens where you get your actions, and then the night phase happens, and then the monster goes, and you kind of have this yin yang back and forth with the monster in between some of these cycles. There's a prep phase, there's an action phase. The prep phase allows you to do certain actions and gather certain resources, but other people can follow you in terms of, if you do an action, they can do a similar action. In the same sense if they can pay for it. And then your actions are basically moving, exploring, fighting, and it's potentially take that, but it's also kind of a weird dynamic. And I don't get a good sense in the rulebook how much anticipatory take that there's going to be, right? Because the 2 win conditions, if we scroll up here without causing this thing to screw up too much, is that you have 1 win condition is you eliminate players twice. You knock out 2 other people. That's it. Right? And you win immediately. The other one is if you can get the atomic core, grab this little item that this big boss monster that you're fighting on the map at the same time. So it's a PvPvE style game, player versus environment. But if you can grab this mystical item and literally run off the map, that you win also. So I can't tell if those modes are significantly compatible and the balance is going to be there. That would be my biggest concern, right? Because if is one of them going to be significantly harder to do, is it going to be a game where you can cherry pick? The monster conditions, it has minions, and they're going to be going after you in between, and you're going to have to deal with that. And so just how nuanced are those systems? Because it seems like there's a lot going on there, and a lot could be ripe for imbalance. And I just don't know how different the combo system is going to be. They talk about the combo system in terms of the characters and upgrading the abilities, and then abilities get 2 uses versus 1, and it appears maybe there's a slight difference when you upgrade it a second time as opposed to upgrading the first time. And then they talk about the monster track here because you're going to be rolling and essentially having a random monster turn at some point based on dice rolls. As a counter goes up, if you roll higher than it, nothing happens. But finally, as the counter goes up higher, you're not going to be able to roll higher than it. And then you're going to be getting this frenzied monster turn out of order, which is going to mess with things. And it's miniature driven, 72-hour early bird. But I mean, this is $100 and freaking $20 to even get 1 core box of either of the 2 core boxes, right? And if you want the gameplay set with some of the challengers, which is basically just more people to use, that's going to be over $300. The early bird collector set, again, the early bird collector set versus the regular collector set gets you all the deluxeifications, but you're talking almost $350 before shipping. This is a really expensive, spicy meatball skirmish game, right? And I'm looking at my Mythic Battles Pantheon and I'm going, I have that. I have another edition of that. That is a proven product. That is a well-established product. Why should I get this one right now with only a couple previews to compare it to? Now, I think it's a cool theme. I think it has high potential, but I just don't know if for this price point, is it really worth it? Because again, you get like 4 gears and 4 riders in each of these core boxes, and you can combine them and they each come with 1 big monster here. This is the box for the first one, and this is the one for the second one, which has this big dude right here. So that's the issue. $300 for 2 monsters and 8 characters. Now, 8 of each combination, but that's expensive. So take it for what you will. It says it's a year out. And this is a relatively younger company. They have 1 other game under their belt that had some miniatures. So how big of a challenge is that going to be? Take that for what you will. I mean, it's worth watching. But for that amount of money, there's a lot of other proven products on the commodity market that you could pick up at the same time. So check it out. Give it a look-see. That's Barbaric. Next up, we have Doomensions. Pop-up, Mystery Manor, escape room, all in one, which has more money than Barbaric, ironically enough. And this is a 3D escape room. project, essentially. It's by a company that does this widely at retail, Curious Correspondence. They have like this mystery box project, mystery package company is what they're called. And you play 5 to 10 hours worth of escape room out of a 3D mystery manor. So how do you feel about that? It's going to cost you almost $80 just to get in on it at this point as well. And I guess, I mean, with the pedigree like this, maybe you can't go wrong, but I think you really have to love this style of game too to really want something this expensive, right? Because otherwise you can go get something for a couple hours experience for $15 at your local game store on one of the escape room games from that aspect that's just not 3D. How much does the 3D element intrigue you? What do you need to know about it? But I mean, it's an escape room game, right? You're going to have all the clues, you're going to have all the pictures, you're going to have all the little items that are going to go along with it, and how you deduce it and how you solve it is going to be up to you. The stretch goals appear to be mostly just deluxeifications, and, you know, they're giving one extra file here if they reach 500,000, so mostly non-gameplay. There you go. Take that for what you will. That's pretty much everything right there, because you can't really do a whole lot with this without spoiling something like that. So it's kind of a risky venture in that sense that you'll like it, but if you do, I guess it's worth a look-see. Check it out. That is Doomensions, the pop-up mystery manor. So next up we have River Trek, the board game. Over its funding goal, doing well. What do you need to know about this sort of pick up and move action selection maximization type game? And you'll understand when I say that what it exactly means. You're going to be moving along the river using your quote-unquote explorers, setting up trading posts, and then moving what they call caravans. Because when you're putting your explorers on the board along this map, you're going to be essentially piling them on top of each other. And then when you move the caravan, which is any number of explorers in a space, you move the whole stack, but one of your own explorers has to be in that stack for you to move it on your turn. And so what happens then is you move them along the path one by one by one. And what I mean by that is you lay them down. You take the stack, you put one down on the space, move to the next space, put one down, move the next space, put one down. And after, after all of them have gone off the edge of the board, then you end the game. And when you're going to be laying these down along these paths, there are either going to be animal tokens, there are going to be trading posts, or they're just going to be blank areas, all of which are, I think actually there's number areas too, all of which are going to be giving you unique different actions. The animal tokens, for example, as you can see here, are each going to have different asymmetric abilities. They are circled here with blue or red, meaning you have to use the ability immediately, or you can save the token for later. And someone can't steal it from you, but you just lose it when you actually play the ability. $13 early bird, $15 standard pledge. And it's just a make the most money you can by the end of the game style of things. The trading posts are going to be the ones connected to these white boxes, as you can see here. And if your color matches the trading post one that gets set down in there, then you get more money. That's it. That's the whole thing of River Trek. It's funded. That's everything you need to know about River Trek. Check it out if you're interested. Next up, we're going to hop over to GameFound. And what is it doing right now? What is different from the first time around when it launched? And why is it actually doing worse, right? They raised 29,000 euros the first time around. And a couple days in now, we're only at 12. When you go back to the previous page, you see that they failed to fund and they had 277 people and they were getting 29,000 euros. You have just over half of that right now. That's not very encouraging, to be frank with you. They've gone the cardboard route instead of the acrylic, and the price point is less, but it's still really expensive for an exclusive edition, which is really only offering you slightly upgraded components. That's really the only reason. This is a 65 euro game for an abstract game. Now it's multiple levels, it's deeper, there's more actions and mechanisms. It almost plays more like a resource management Euro than it does necessarily an abstract when you look at how it plays in the different phases of your turn that you're going through. And I will say that the other thing that I really critiqued it the first time around that I'm going to echo that comment this time around is just that you don't get a good sense of the game flow and the interactions with how they describe it on the page. I don't even get that from the rule book fully. And I really had to watch John Gets Games video last time, and I would echo that comment here. Now, comparison chart, this is really not consumer friendly. This is very small font. There's way too much all in this. What they should have just done is said, what's the main key differences? But you can see from this retail one, they've got all these measurements in here, and all these measurements are distinctly different, right? All of them, almost all of these tiles, all of the everything that's going along with it, essentially. And the main crux of things that's, majorly different is you have the metal coins and the storage at the exclusive all-in, which doesn't even really get you, an all-in isn't really getting you any extra things. It's getting you coins and storage. Like, when I think of all-in, I don't think of coins and storage, right? So, yes, it's cheaper. 65 euros for the exclusive, the all-in. Previously was 119, so you went from 89 to 65 and 119 to, what is the other one here? 95. So 25 euros ish difference. Acrylics are 25 euros worth of money. That's still way more expensive than I would have thought. You're essentially going to be talking, even for this exclusive edition, for slightly upgraded components that's not really any significantly different than the retail version. You're going to be paying almost $100 for this. Is this $100 worth of midweight Euro / abstract? I can buy a lot of midweight Euros that have a good pedigree for this, or I can buy a lot of abstracts. I can buy almost half of the GIP series, plus maybe Talk and Hive on the retail market for the price of this. And that's the issue with this, right? That's really the issue. And I think I'm not the only one that thinks this, because otherwise you'd have more than 158 people looking at this right now. So it is what it is, right? Even the description of how you play. I'm going to go through this. You have the different emotions, right? The amygdala is the center of the brain that controls all of the emotions. So you're going to be trying to collect these tiles, match them up, pattern build to earn victory points. So the first phase of things is you have this center board where you're going to be going to the center board and moving this mood marker to a region that's going to have resource tokens adjacent. And you have to pay for the most expensive one, but you get a second one that's cheaper for free. Then you take those tokens and you move them over to your memory board. Your memory board is where you're making these links, these connections, and essentially storing them in order to utilize them as you go and create said patterns in the first place. You move your marker to the region then where you're going to place your emotion tile, and then you place it down, scoring victory points for everything that's adjacent down there. Does that sound like it's completely crystal clear? It's not, because you really kind of have to get combinations and ideas, and you can only have 10 tokens here. And watch the video. Believe me, just watch the video. I can't give you a better synopsis than that. You can play it on Tabletopia if you want. I love the idea of this game, but my concern is it's like a couple of the other pseudo abstracts we've seen recently, that this doesn't seem like an abstract I can play in 30 minutes, right? Especially at a higher player count. This seems like an abstract you're going to be playing at least at 1 to 1.5 hours, if not longer, on your first learning game. And when I think of abstracts, I don't think of that style of game length at all. Like, I love my abstracts because they're, thinky but short and very strategic and tactical at the same time. Now, this has that latter part, but it definitely doesn't have the former. So, say what you will. Check it out if you want. This is Amygdala from Game Brewer over on GameFound. Next up, Gnomadic Gardeners, because I talked about it, and it's 250% funded right now. So what are you doing in Gnomadic Garden? It's an engine builder for 1 to 2 players where you can take that and sort of engine build as well. As we scroll down here, the how to play is actually relatively straightforward, right? You simultaneously lay down a gnome, and then you flip it over, and to see who goes first, you resolve the abilities, and some are going to be scoring, or they're going to be recruiting, or they're going to be affecting what the other gnomes do, and then you pass the gnome that was played to your opponent that they can utilize it until you achieve the scoring condition. So it's one of those sort of, if I use it, it's going to then fall into the opponent's hand, so I have to be careful about how strong or the timing of when I'm going to use those. They're going to be trying to fulfill tasks along the way via the use of these gnome cards to, again, score the most points that you can. There's a solo mode, and the physical edition is only going to cost you $19. So, I mean, for $1,200 at 19 a piece, that's pretty well popped. They've got a couple stretch goals here that are going to be hit, so you're getting more cards already. It's just one of these nice little indie games, and I think if you have any interest in this, you should definitely give it a look-see. It's just only going to go up from here, so that is Gnomadic Gardeners. Now, let's go back and look at some campaign updates really briefly instead on today's video as opposed to tomorrow's. And we have campaigns literally ending minutes after the time I'm filming this, as well as hours. So let's start with the most ending soon, I guess. Most ending soonest. This has literally 22 minutes at the time of me filming this. So in case you guys are actually doing the math there, I'm filming this on the night before this airs. And 60 exclusive promo cards. Let's talk about that for a second. If you have any FOMO whatsoever, Wise Wizard plays off of it. And it's not plastic chunks, but it is significant gameplay content. And if you're going to shout at the rooftops and light your pitchforks, yeah, 3 weeks in a row he went with that analogy, lighting your pitchforks in outrage elsewhere, this has to be along those lines too. If you're going to critique it one place, you're going to critique it all place. Just be consistent. I don't mind exclusives. They are what they are. It's going to entice me. I mean, that's the problem with Amygdala, right? No exclusives. No reason to get it now. No reason to pay a deluxe price for a non-deluxe version, essentially. So, are you getting in? Did you get in? I guess is really what I should be asking, because by the time you're going to be viewing this, we're, 12 hours over the fact. So, that's where that's at. Let's see what we got with hours left elsewhere. Sunshine City. If you're not backing this, go back this. This is going to be almost over by the time you view this. I don't need the $12 version. I only need the $5 version. I'm back in the $12 version. My shipping is going to be outrageous here. It's absolutely quadrupled or quintupled in the time I talked about it last week. The shipping is just going up and up and up, factors and factors and factors of numbers. And by that, I mean it's still zero because it's a print and play. So, which reminds me, I need to go print and play Aquamarine so I can get the review out that, maybe with conjunction of Voyages, and tell you how I feel about that from Postmark Games. But I think it looks great. So I'm in on it. I'm going to keep this one. It's not going anywhere. So spoilers on the what I back for August. So there you go. What else we got going on here? We got fishing lessons from Button Shy. It's going to probably get close to 100,000 by the end. It's a solo fishing game where you're action programming-esque. And, the other thing with Button Shy is that they really put some of their back catalog on order. And you can get all of the other solo games that are unlocked or have been previously funded. Free expansion with a $12 pledge. So this is usually where they end up in terms of pledging amounts. So I'm not surprised at all with this. Maybe a little bit more than I would have guessed for this small of a solo game, but that really has a market nowadays. And if you like it, maybe you're in on it, maybe you're not. Let me know. Tell me what you think. Let's go a little bit further out. We have Moonrakers at 48 hours left. This is just getting the emails out to the 48-hour backers here right after I film. 11,000 people, almost 1.7 million. Just unlocking more foils, unlocking more foils, unlocking more foils. I mean, it hasn't been widely available at retail like most IV games. But the real question is, can you afford to spend, whatever it's going to be, $150 for the base game with all of the expansions? And I kid you, actually more like $200 including shipping. And you have to love this game. I would say that all of the expansions are not equal, and you are probably going to like all of the expansions differently. And so if you're on the fence, the base game is the way to go, but you have to have a group dynamic that's going to support this. A lot of people that hate on this game, as I saw on Reddit, really don't have the right group for this. If you don't have a group that loves negotiating and the dynamic interchange and, take that aspect of how you're going to play this in terms of the missions, this game probably is not going to work well for you. And so it's really about not what your money is worth. It's about what your play style is like in these situations. Personally, I thought this was a great solo experience as well from a just base game standpoint, but is it really... That's the question. A $65 plus shipping solo gameplay experience. And that's a tough pill to swallow. I won't lie, especially when we just came from a $12 solo playing card game, right? Like that's a big difference. So there's not anything else really out there significantly like it with the deck building, with the action management and the allegiances and the shipbuilding that goes along with it. But it's definitely not going to be a great fit for everyone. And the expansions are significantly different. Do you want more stuff with the overload? Do you want the binding ties where you're giving more reason for people to agree to work with each other on these contracts? Or do you want the Nomad, which sort of mixes the two and offers more of a spatial element to the contracts as well as a little bit more stuff to go along with it? Personally, in order of my own preference, I think it goes Overload, Binding Ties, and then Nomad. But that's my own opinion. I did a video on it. You can check that out, breaking down all of those expansions and my thoughts on them in more detail. But this is going to be over before the weekend is out, and it's probably going to have a couple $100,000 more by the end of it. And buyer beware. Can you get it on the secondary market if you want to, or are you going to pay a premium? So check it out. That's Moonrakers Titans. Now we're going to go out significantly farther now because Foundations of Rome has 10 days left. But, you know, it's doing great, right? Right? Is it doing great? I don't really know. I mean, it's getting consistent, you know, $100,000 a weekish plus. And so in some realm of things, that has to be great. But the overproduction and the fact that you can't really get in, although they did put out a new pledge level. I'll throw that out there in case you are checking this out right now. They put out a new pledge level right here. The Maximus, which has everything in it, including the Roads of Fortune. So it's $30 more than the Emperor pledge. But they've kind of cut out the just core base game pledge, which is a super irritation of mine. I just saw this on Twitter. You know, someone was marking, you know what? I don't really need expansions. I'm going to pass on this one. Do you get enough gameplay out of your base games? And I say that as someone who doesn't. I'm not going to say I'm above that. I'm well below that too. So I've really been more selective on expansions. I bought a lot of expansions FOMO-wise on crowdfunding. I mean, I'm looking at Stygian Society behind me. I haven't cracked open either of those expansions. Right? That's a game from 2020. Bloodborne. Don't even talk to me about that one yet. So, do you really need this? I'll leave that up to you. You know, check out my video from yesterday. Some of my thoughts on crowdfunding and hype that is going into these campaigns and the price point that is trending along with them. At some point, there's going to be a make it or break it. And this is along those lines of games that are pushing that boundary. And I don't necessarily say that in a totally positive manner. Yes, they're nicer to look at and it's more aesthetically pleasing, but at what cost? At what cost? So there you go. That is the end of the roundup this week with a few campaign updates. That's all I got. So take that for what you will. Tomorrow's upcoming video, and you know, I'll throw something else in with it. I have a couple other, if you liked yesterday's video, if you didn't, I mean, you can ignore this part, or you can be more enticed to check out yesterday's video. I have two other topics that I'm going to be talking about and getting to in the near future. Maybe both next week. I'm trying to get more reviews out, so we'll see. But two topics, one of which is circulating that I haven't seen too many other people cover. It's a little bit divisive. And another one that is related to Gen Con. So, and ties into the video from yesterday as well. That's all I got. Teasers, spoilers. Check it out if you want. Stay classy. See you around. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.